So now you are at a turning point, and we are bringing in an enormous amount of divine feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
And what that is chaos energy. So let's not look at it as anarchy, right? This is not about what people normally associate with chaos. Chaos energy is really big, expansive energy that throws open the doors to the realm of possibility.
Yes.
I never know where she's gonna go or what she's gonna talk about. It's like, wow, okay,
that was awesome.
Yeah,
Wasn't that awesome? That was so awesome. You know,
you got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hello and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. So wonderful, as always, to be with you again. Well, I have the beautiful Danielle Gibbons back on the show. Welcome to the show, Danielle.
Thank you, Karen. It's wonderful to be here.
Danielle and I had some discussions back in 2016 and 2017 with you and Mother. Let me read out your bio and introduce you to people that don't know you, but those that have been following me for a while will have seen the conversations we've had in the past. And I was just revisiting them this morning before we clicked the recording, before we came on Zoom. And I'm like, wow, it seems like yesterday, and it's so much has happened since then. So we're in transformative. Danielle Gibbons has been channeling Mother Mary for over 22 years, probably more like 25 years now, isn't it? Mother came in 1994,
Yes.
Mother came to Danielle in a meditation and offered her the opportunity to channel her. Her whole being, Danielle's whole being said yes. And she started small by channeling for friends, but as word spread and expanded, offering Mother's presence to individuals and larger groups. After Danielle's son was born in 2008, she started taking her business online to share Mother's love with people all over the world. And in 2015, Mother led her to publish her first book called Mother Mary's Path to Love, Building a Loving Relationship with Yourself that will transform your life. So sit back and get comfortable and tune in to the sublime energy of unconditional love that we'll be chatting with today. And I was just saying to Danielle before, there's a bit of a delay in the internet, so hopefully that'll fix itself. But I reached out to Danielle a couple of months ago when COVID first sort of hit and everyone was kind of in fear. And I thought, I wonder what Mother Mary's perspective is on what's going on in the world. But so much has happened. So much has happened since then. How's your business been, this year? What's been happening in your world since, and I'll just say to people, if you want to hear Danielle's full story of awakening, we go into it in the last show I did in 2016, and also some snippets from the Inner Sanctum in 2017. So what's been happening in your world since then?
Oh my gosh, so much, Karen. I tell you, it's interesting because I have been very blessed that Mother has been, I feel like preparing me for this year for a long time. And as you mentioned, a lot of my work is online. So for me, I did not miss a beat. I've been really busy, and normally for the past gosh, I don't know, I want to say 20 years. I've done a workshop in the spring. And a couple of years ago, Mother said, I don't want to do workshops anymore. I want us to do longer retreats. And so last year, 2019, in the spring of 2019 was my last workshop in Atlanta. And I didn't do one this year. So I didn't have anything to cancel or kind of scramble and redo. And I was really in a great place. And I felt very blessed and very, really carried, so my business has not interrupted even like a tiny bit. And as a matter of fact, I'm about to do my first in-person retreat down in Mount Shasta. I leave Thursday morning to drive down there, Mount Shasta, California, because Mother wants, this is like a working retreat. Everyone that's coming will be working light workers, and we are going to be moving and holding a lot of divine feminine energy, because Mount Shasta is actually the root chakra for the planet. And so we are going to be bringing in a lot of light. So I am super excited about that. But it's just, everything's just opened up here in the US a little bit, and where we're traveling to has not had many cases of COVID and no deaths. And so it's she's been setting things up here for me, preparing me for this year for a while, and I can feel it.
I know you say that you haven't had any trials through the trials that humanity is going through at the moment, but we've had our trial by fire, haven't we? We've been there, done that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And as I was listening to our conversation in 2016, I heard you talk about your trials, because I asked you, how did Mother come to you, and what were what were the questions? And you said that, you were overcoming a food addiction, and you felt like the only way to overcome it was it had to be a spiritual solution, and not a sort of headspace solution. And
Right.
And once you align with that spiritual solution and those divine energies, which we all are a part of, we all are an extension of, once you realign with that, they have access to all that is, meaning all space and time. And so it's so interesting how they prepare you, once you're working with those energies, for the great disruption on this world. Because I've had exactly the same experience. Pretty much most of my work is online, and I used to do a lot of events in person, but I've spent the last few years just supporting other people's in-person events, and took all my stuff online. And so I wasn't disrupted at all. In fact, I got busier. I suppose you got busier as well.
Yes, I have. That's indeed. And what you're saying is so true, Karen, because when you are aligned with that energy, and of course, here's the key, which we should definitely include for people so they know, that when you're willing to follow the guidance, right, as it's set out, I personally find that things pretty much fall into place. It's not like my life doesn't have problems or issues don't come up, but I can feel the synchronicity. I can feel that I'm being carried. I can feel that if a problem does arise, if I just wait and do whatever it is that she asks me to do in the interim, that a solution presents itself, and I just keep moving forward. There is really not a lot of intense upheaval or drama, or the feeling that I've been dropped by the side of the road and abandoned. I just don't have those feelings so much anymore. And it makes all the difference in my life, having that alignment with the divine, because I don't worry so much about the future
exactly
the way that I used to, for sure.
Yes, yes. It's just that dropping into the present moment, which all the great spiritual teachers talk about, right? And it's like thinking about it and doing it are two totally different things. Because so many of us are worrying about the future. And I suppose as people reach out to channels or people that have access to higher consciousness, they're asking questions about the future as the shift hits the fan, like what we've been going through. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Have people been reaching out to you for that? Like, what does Mother Mary say about what's going to happen next?
Yes, and Mother has done a series of videos. The first one, she gave a long, probably like a 90-minute talk on the pandemic and what it was all about, and that's up on my YouTube channel. And then lately, she had been wanting me to start doing live streams. So we used to pre-record the videos, and I would just put them up every couple weeks, on my YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And they were always on a variety of subjects. And then all of a sudden she was like, oh, I want to do live streaming on YouTube. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay. And we started June 1st, literally June 1st. And the last 3 that she's done, she has talked about, current events. And I thought, oh, okay, now I understand why she wants to live stream. And there are a couple of other shows that I do on a regular basis, and she's talked about the pandemic there. So my community's had a lot of resources over the past many months to listen to and to hear, what she's saying about what's going on. So yes, my community very much. I think, like everyone, it's scary when something of this caliber or this level affects everyone, not just one country or a few countries, but almost everyone on the planet is being affected by this pandemic. And so, people are really facing, they're living through something that no one they know's ever lived through. That's the odd part. So usually you can, if you're going through something, someone has a similar story, or you can find people who've gone through what you've gone through or whatever, but no one has gone through this. We're all in this for the first time, which is a little unnerving, I think, for most people.
Unnerving and exciting. I think it's exciting.
I do too.
As you view it from a broader perspective, if you look at it through the eyes of Source or through the divine perspective, it is exciting and it is needed and essential. Look, I've been chatting away with my guides for years, and I remember a few years ago, many times actually, having a chat to them about, because we've been talking about the great shift for so long, like 30 years. And you look out into mainstream society and you see the same old. You see consumerism and corruption and pollution and politicians arguing with each other and people bitching about the politics. Like, nothing's changing. And I'm just looking out into society, and I say to my mob, like, what's it going to actually take to change the world? Because you talk about all this stuff, but I don't see anything changing. Do there have to be riots in the streets? Do people have to rebel and like burn down the shops? It's like, literally, like, that's what I said to them. Is that what it's going to take? And I'm like watching it on the news and I'm going, oh, well, I guess that's what it's going to take.
Yeah. It's true. But I think that the pandemic is a different something, because, and Mother's talked about this, I agree wholeheartedly. I think one of our biggest problems as the human race is we are under this illusion that we are somehow in control of the planet, of weather, of the animals, that somehow we are not only at the top of the food chain and the ecosystem, but that we're actually in charge of it.
Mm-hmm.
And this pandemic to me feels like, well, and the response to our poisoning of the environment, you know, the intensity, the ramping up of all the storms and the crazy weather patterns that are causing death and destruction for, you know, year after year. You all just lived through some of the most horrific fires, you know, in your country's history.
And floods.
And so I feel like for, I'm going to say the last 5 years, maybe a little more, maybe 7, I feel like Mother Nature has been, you know, Mother Earth is saying, I'm going to take back what I need for this ecosystem, you know, and the pandemic is such an amazing reminder that we are not in charge. You know, we are not. We are not in control. And while on one hand, to me, that's a very exciting and amazing awakening for people. On the other hand, it stirs up a lot of fear. So when this reaction to George Floyd's murder globally, I was not surprised, you know, because we've been held in with the pandemic, right? Sheltering in place, stewing and stewing and stewing. And then all of a sudden it just erupts literally out into the streets.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it made complete sense to me. And in some ways, the demonstrations, whether they're peaceful or they became violent, the burning down of building, I think it's often how humans try to take back control.
Oh yeah, totally.
And I think that Mother Nature is just going to keep taking back what she needs. I don't know how much that is, but she's just going to keep taking back as much as she needs in order to rebalance the ecosystem. And if we can't find our balance within the ecosystem, I don't know. I mean, science tells us that just because a species has been around for a long time is no guarantee that it'll keep going, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think that we've been given incredible gifts as a race of being, as a race of creatures, and we are not using those gifts to live in some kind of balance with Mother Earth.
So what did Mother say about the pandemic? At the time I reached out to you, everyone was in freak out mode.
Yep.
I remember my daughter came home and she said, "Mom, we're in a pandemic." And I said, "Oh, we're not in a pandemic." And she's like screaming at me, we are. And I was so surprised at her reaction because I never saw a pandemic happening on this world. Honestly, I really didn't. I think there was, you know, what there was the ramifications of the idea of the pandemic is what's caused the global unification in drama, really, and what's been happening because of the shutdowns and businesses. But you know, Australia, we've had 100 so-called deaths, and who knows that those people weren't going to die from whatever illness they already had, or anyway. So it's so interesting what's been happening. It's just been so interesting. So that's
all the deaths you've had in your entire country?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's extraordinary.
And they shut down. And the ramifications of this is what people are freaking out about. Like, you've closed my business down. There's a big, you know, I live in a beachside suburb with restaurants everywhere, and there's a big restaurant, 3-story restaurant just down the road, owned by a multi-millionaire. But nonetheless, it's been shut for all this time. And now I was just chatting to the guy yesterday, and he said, we're only allowed 50 people, you know, in this massive place. And I'm like thinking, how can you keep your doors open? Like, there are so many doors that have not stayed open. and this is what people are in uproar about. Over 100 deaths. Like, more people die on the roads every day in one city. That, you know, that death is, that toll is so small compared to, in fact, the statistics that are coming out globally is that the death toll through sickness has been a lot less through the pandemic than it has in other years. So the numbers aren't adding up, and people are angry about that. As you say, we're being controlled not only by the pandemic, but by the fear of the pandemic and by the authorities making decisions on our behalf, which are affecting our lives. And that control thing, trying to take back, they're all out there trying to take back some sense of control.
Well, but it's, you know, it's hard to, you know, balance public opinion and science, I think, oftentimes. And, you know, if you look at what happened in Sweden, they did not do so well. They chose to not go into lockdown. They did not do any social distancing, and they have the highest death toll of anywhere in the world per capita, per cases. So they're not doing so well, and now they're saying they really regret the path they took, because people are, you know, sort of the opposite of what you guys are experiencing, because you guys shut down everything so quickly and so efficiently, but they didn't. And so now the population there is in outrage that so many people have died. So they feel that the government completely dropped the ball, and, you know, just...
Yeah, Danielle, I haven't heard that. I've got a few people in our group that are in Scandinavia, and they've not been reporting that at all. So it's really interesting.
That's what I'm reading in our news outlets.
But the mainstream media outlets, that's what you're hearing in the mainstream media outlets. I know. But it's different when you're talking to people on the ground than mainstream media outlets. It's completely different.
That's true. That's very true. And not everyone, of course, shares that opinion for sure. But I know that there's a lot of, mistakes or opinions about mainstream media or whatever. But I personally I'm a fan of science, and I'm a fan of investigative reporting. So I tend to focus on, places that I trust for information. And it's, these are people who are conducting like widespread polls, and they're, so it's not just a couple of people's opinion, but it's, I think what has this virus has the capacity in the beginning to, I don't know, maybe I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist. I think that the people who've died, either directly from the COVID or because they had pre-existing conditions, that then the COVID just, wiped them out. I don't know how accurate ultimately it is, but I do feel that it is a real thing. And someone in my community, she's a virologist, and had a laboratory at Emory University here in Georgia for all her career. And that's what she did. She studied viruses. And I had her do a talk in our community, and it was such a great talk. It was so fantastic. I was so grateful. She gave this great explanation about what are viruses and how did they work and all this. She was just awesome. But one of the most interesting things she talked about is how viruses don't want to kill you, because that runs contrary to their survival.
Absolutely.
So they quickly try to adapt, so that, yes, they want lots of people to get sick because they want you to pass it around. They want to, the virus wants to continue, but it doesn't want to kill its host, because then it can't replicate. It can't thrive. It can't keep going.
It can't survive. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now that it's been in human hosts now for a while, it's going to start adapting. And so just by its very nature, it will end up ultimately causing less and less deaths, because that's not what it wants. That's not its goal. And I find that so fascinating. I did not know that about viruses.
Oh, look, absolutely. We could go into this. I started as a naturopath and I have a scientific mind as well. And we were never ever taught that viruses, one, were contagious, ever, or that
Viruses, I'm sorry, what?
that viruses are contagious,
Yeah.
or that they want to kill their host. And I don't really think that even the most cutting edge science available in the mainstream on our planet has a clue of what's really going on. I think it's an evolutionary process, and I think the viruses and the microbiome are all a part of it. And they're not having a spiritual conversation about the shift in human evolution, the shift in human consciousness, which means that as you hold a different vibration and frequency in your consciousness, obviously your physical form has to be a vessel in which can acclimate and attune to that frequency. And so that's going to look different down the end of a microscope. It's just going to look different. There are changes happening. There's huge detoxification happening in the mainstream. And the riots are part of it. And the detoxification, the disclosure, the upheaval of all that's been covert, the good and the bad. And, what has been covert is that we can connect to beings such as Mother Mary and energies and spiritual channeling. And there's like a lot of stuff that's been suppressed. Pedophilia rings, spirituality, it's all been suppressed. And so it's all rising. And it's looking like chaos, and it's fabulous and beautiful. And I think that, in 50 years, we'll look back at this with a whole different perspective than what we currently see. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And people like yourself and everybody I know who is really focused on a spiritual path is so excited about this time, and myself included. Like I of course I don't know the accuracy of data or mainstream media, but what I do know is that I feel like this is what we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I feel as though we are, and that's not, and I don't want to imply at all that people who are on a spiritual path are not going to get sick. Like everybody has their own personal path, and
everyone has their own.
Yeah. So
story.
I don't mean that, but I feel like we have been asked to hold the light and to just radiate that, because there's such an upheaval of fear. But this is how you navigate in a different way, is to face that fear, to have that pain and to face it and to think, can we do things differently?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's, I think, what the demonstrations are so reflective of.
Yes.
Saying we need to do things differently. Can we do things differently? How can we do things differently? And that is a deeply spiritual question.
Yeah.
Because it's never going to just be about statistics or political structures, or those will play a part, but this has got to come from inside.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. You got to stop rallying. Got to stop rallying to the outside and stop screaming at trying to change things. Look, the thing about fear arising is the only thing that overcomes fear is self-love, really, unconditional self-love. There's really no other answer. And this is the message that Mother brings, that so strongly, so powerfully. I think everything you say is love yourself and you'll love it. Unconditional love it. And so as fear arises, what if we could love the virus and love the pandemic and love the riot? Like, what if we could love all of it? Yeah. And I think that to the mainstream human mind, they just don't get that. So it's like when something bad happens, we've got to rally against it. We've got to push against it. We've got to resist it, scream about it, instead of...
We have to fight.
Fight.
We have to fight the pandemic. We have to fight the virus. We have to fight, it's a very different mindset than what you and I and people in our communities all over the world are really experiencing, because when you said, we have to love the virus, we have to love the pandemic, that's exactly what Mother was saying in her first initial video. She's like, look, if you're scared, sit with, meditate with the virus. Bring love to the virus, really just because the virus is equally, this is always so trippy when she says stuff like this, the virus is equally important in the ecosystem as you are.
Absolutely.
Right? So everybody in everything, every creature in the ecosystem is all equal. Everybody just has different gifts.
Yeah, different roles to play, different puzzle pieces. Yep.
That's right. But there's no superior race, right? There's the human race is not superior to the ant or the lion.
Or the bacteria, the microbiome race, because they are consciousnesses. They are.
That's right.
Yeah, they are a whole race.
Yeah, and we have to live with them.
Yeah, and what's even more crazy is there's 7.5 billion people on planet Earth. There's just literally trillions of these consciousnesses. We are more bacteria and viruses than we are anything else.
That's what Linda was saying in her lecture.
Exactly.
And everyone was like, oh my God. It was so cool to learn about all of this.
I know.
It was awesome. And afterwards, I just felt so much, I really felt so much more in tune with the virus, because I sort of could, I don't know, I felt like I could really feel its vibration better, having then understood a little bit of its history and what viruses are like and how much of them we live with.
Yes. All the time.
In a symbiotic relationship.
Absolutely. A community of consciousness that is running our physical form more than anything else. And for the most part, the mainstream idea has demonized them. And we've had a war against germs, and we've been at war with this body of consciousness. We've been at war with them. And so the pandemic has sort of introduced us to these life forms, and we live with you. It's really, the perfection is beautiful. I don't think that the mainstream mind is having this conversation, but
no, that's true.
But anyone that's listening to this, go out there and have this conversation with your friends. Ask people to look into the science, because like your friend, and many of the people I've had on the show, and many of my friends, there are many people out there talking about this from a very scientific perspective. And I think that the science that we're getting on mainstream news from people, not mentioning any names, but is very dumbed down, watered down to sort of bring it to a large audience on the news. It's not informative.
Sure. And that's what was so exciting about her lecture, because she's been a student of Mother's for, now maybe 20 years.
Beautiful.
And so it was that combination of science and spirituality.
Beautiful.
And how like you were talking about, how that consciousness of the viruses, how that intersects. And that's what changed her work, is at some point in her spiritual life, she started meditating with the viruses that she worked with.
Beautiful.
So she started really awakening to their consciousness.
Yeah.
And it changed the way she ran her lab.
Everything.
It changed the way she did the science. It was really extraordinary. I mean, she didn't really talk about that. I just know that personally because I've known her for 20 years. But to have that perspective, I think was so important, because when you're saying this war on germs, and I feel it goes even a little bit deeper. It's like this war on death. And like death is the enemy, and anything that can bring that about is also then criminalized or demonized or put in that same category of no, you are not. We have to sterilize you out of our system, out of our communities, out of our collective. And it's that's like the war on drugs. It's just a ridiculous.
It's just another war.
War, yeah,
It's
and
just another war.
winnable.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
It's
winnable.
not winnable. It's not a winnable war.
Yeah, it's just a waste of time and energy. And it's not that I'm anti, Western medicine. I think there's some phenomenal. There's really phenomenal aspects to it, but there is that sterility to it that I don't resonate with. Whereas the naturopathic approach is much more organic. It feels much more inclusive. I would love so much, and maybe this will happen. It seems to be happening more and more. More marriage between the two. To see the two of them sort of
coming
camps
together. The way I see it, having started my journey as as a naturopath, and finding no questions after 5 years full-time study. no questions, finding no answers to my questions after 5 years full-time study, and seeking. It is not until the consciousness component marries with the scientific component do we have a hope in heaven, a hope on earth, to really sort out our health industry or illness industry or medical industry. It's at the moment, it's just a chaos of symptoms and drugs, and I think where most doctors are sort of swimming in the dark until they bring in that consciousness component. But what I'm seeing people like your friend and client. I'm seeing people that are doctors and scientists coming to people like you and me and our work, and listening to the channeling, and then bringing that consciousness component into their work. And that's, how the industries are going to change. And it just makes me cry thinking about it.
Yeah.
People waking up, that's how the world's going to change, as people wake up to their own spiritual journey, and not to leave their jobs, but to include the spiritual journey in what they're doing and bring a new perspective into the mainstream.
It's true.
It's the only way.
Hearing more doctors talk about the benefits of meditation, and the benefits of having some kind of spiritual religious practice where you're plugged into a community. I see that even going through my and we have a crazy horrible insurance system in our country. I don't know how it is in Australia, but it is a nightmare here in the US. But even so, in my insurance benefits, there's so much more about, hey, if you do this, you get that. And a lot of it is, exercise and yoga. And things that even just 5 years ago, 10 years ago, no way would that be a part of our insurance system.
I know, the beauty of Americans, and being so many of you, having no fallback system, you have to actually physically pay for your health systems, is that it's forcing you to take responsibility for your health. Because in our country, I remember I was in a motorcycle accident when I was young, and it happened, a car came down a one-way street the wrong way and hit me and broke my wrist, but right outside the hospital, which was hilarious, and they still sent an ambulance, but it did not cost me a cent, and I had 2 operations and I was in a hospital for a week. Our system just covered everything. So if you have a system that covers everything, you can get complacent about your health, because you can get sick and go to hospital, enter through emergency. I'm not sure how it works now, because I haven't been sick for a long time, but you're covered. So you don't take responsibility for your health. But if you haven't got that cover, then you're forced to take responsibility and not think that you're going to be saved by some hospital or yet another operation or something that you don't have to worry about paying for. Yeah, so it's kind of good.
See where it would be, the pros and cons of each, for sure. Yeah. For sure. And you're right. That's exactly how I live my life. I have absolutely learned long ago in my early adulthood that it was like, you better not get too sick here in this country, because you can lose everything here easily. People do it every day.
I know, I've heard that. I've heard,
It's,
horror stories.
I don't understand that, but
and I've seen, even on dramatized, television shows and stuff, people entering emergency dying and hospitals turning them away because they don't have insurance and can't pay. And I'm like, how can that happen? Like, how can you turn away someone who in need because of money? Like, it's so...
because our system is all for profit.
Yeah.
So that's how
you
turn people away.
Crazy.
I know.
Anyway, shall we bring Mother through? How long have we been yakking? We could yak all day, but...
I know. Yes, let's do that.
It's so great to catch up with you and chat with you.
I know.
Like it's been forever. And I'm sure that, my show's been growing. I'll be introducing you to a whole new audience that haven't gone back even 3 years or 4 years, 5 years. So, So
I'm glad to hear that your show is growing, because you're doing such wonderful work and bringing so much light to the world, Karen. So that makes me happy that you are growing. That's awesome.
Yeah, and for you too, because we had that conversation in our first conversation. You'd been channeling for 22 years, but it had been a very steady but slow growth. And I said, I can see big expansion for you. Are you ready? And you said, yep, I think I'm ready. And it probably didn't happen directly after that, but as you say, in the last couple of years, things have really shifted for you, though, haven't they? 3 years.
Definitely, yeah. Same, yeah. It's definitely growing, but I'm so grateful it's still really good and steady, because I'm always the tortoise, not really the hare. So I'm grateful for it's slow and steady. But yeah, it's been great.
Beautiful.
So let's see what Mother has to say. Hello, beloved one. It is wonderful to be with you today, my dear.
Hello, Mother. Thank you again. Thank you so much for blessing us, gracing us with your wisdom once more. I suspect you've been listening to Danielle and I chatting away.
Indeed, I have, beloved.
Have you got anything that you'd like to add to our conversation, or shall I fire some questions at you?
I would like to talk, and I don't do this very often, so I'm going to do this sort of special for your audience and those who are wise enough to be a part of your community, my dear. So I don't like to talk about the future very often, because the future is not set. Right? There is a future that is likely. It is a future that is the more obvious, or that tends to be easy to identify for some, because it is sort of percentage-wise the one that will likely come to pass. But now, at this time, things are changing very rapidly. And so it is almost impossible to predict the future, especially at this time, because what is being introduced to your world in a big way is more divine mother energy. So I want to talk a little bit about what that means. In order for all of you to continue thriving in your world, you require more equality. And one of the greatest imbalances, which then often is responsible for a lot of the other imbalances, is that between the masculine and feminine. And I do not necessarily mean between those of the male sex and those of the female sex, because all of you have lived many lives in different bodies, even occasionally in different species. So it's not really about man and woman, but rather that masculine and feminine. So what you all are facing right now is a crisis of conscience. You are being granted the opportunity of illuminating what's really going on inside each of you individually and collectively. So since 2000, this new millennium, the biggest energy that was granted has been transparency.
Yes.
And when there is transparency, the shadow no longer gets to, act in secrecy, right?
Yes.
What's happening is that your shadow selves, which is absolutely normal, part of life, the light and the shadow work together beautifully. They are not at war. They are not against each other. They work together. Each highlights the other. Definitely. So that you all can evolve.
Definitely.
Right? So what is unusual about your species doesn't make you more important, but it's unusual is that you are sentient. So you were given this gift for your survival, because you don't have big claws to defend yourself, or you're not so tiny that you can hide and work so perfectly in harmony in a colony or community. You don't have great camouflage. You walk upright and you display your soft, vulnerable, right, underbelly. So in some ways, the way your species evolved, there's a lot of cons when it comes to survival. So one of your biggest pros has been your sentient mind, your ability to have an individual experience while being in the one. Right? So as this transparency is ramping up and getting more and more powerful, more is being revealed, more is being illuminated, it gets harder and harder every day to hide. To hide your shadow behind a facade. It gets harder to pretend, to feel something you don't feel, to appear to be someone that you're not. it gets harder and harder to live in the fantasy of, oh, well, when this happens, then I'll be happy. Or when I become this person, then I will deserve love. All these illusions are being taken away little by little. And what you're left with, not yet, but what you are getting left with, is the understanding, the real recognition of how far out of balance you have become due to too much masculine energy and not enough feminine in your collective. And what that means is you are trying to use imposed order rather than divine order.
Perfect.
Right? So divine order, you have that lovely balance of masculine and feminine. You can feel how things just work together to support you. Divine order gives you the feeling that life is for you. Imposed order gives you the feeling that life is against you. So you have to fight and push and try harder and make it work. And if you want it done right, you have to do it yourself, right? All of that.
Mm-hmm.
So now you are at a turning point. And we are bringing in an enormous amount of divine feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
And what that is chaos energy.
Mm.
So let's not look at it as anarchy, right? This is not about what people normally associate with chaos. Chaos energy is really big, expansive energy that throws open the doors to the realm of possibility.
Yes.
And then the masculine energy, once the doors are thrown open, and individually, collectively, you see, oh, that you feel what is possible. And then you decide on a course of action, right? There it wells up within you, that chaos energy, because it gestates, right? The feminine, the womb, where all is possible. And then you decide on a course of action. And the masculine energy says, all right, fantastic. Let's bring it to fruition. Let's bring it into creation or form out in the world so that all can share and be a part of it, right? So divine order is not about a particular religion. It's not about a particular spiritual belief system. It's not New Age. It's not Old Age. It's not anything that has any limitation as far as what the human mind comes up with to create certain opinions or ways of living, belief systems. It goes far beyond that. And what you all have right now is an opportunity to evolve as a species. Now, that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. And as of now, it feels as though there is enough of you that want this evolution that you will bring it about. You will be instrumental in bringing it about. Now, does that mean that you are going to enter into a time of utopia or mythology about being brought up to heaven and now you're in the Garden of Eden? No. Humanity is still an important place where souls can come to experience deep shadow and a whole evolution back to light through death and rebirth and death and rebirth. But to evolve as a species means that you get to unlock some of your other abilities. Just being sentient, that's not the whole gift package, so to speak, that human beings have locked inside of them. And when a species evolves, you evolve first for adaptation. And in order to adapt, to survive, you have to unlock more of your potential to commune with each other and the whole of nature or the ecosystem in which you are an integral part, right? Not a dominant part, but an integral part.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what a lot of this awakening in spiritual circles, holding light, sharing light, learning to use your mind and your heart and your intuition, the voice of your soul, to use those in balance, right? It's not all about just the mind. It's not all about just the heart. It's not all about just the soul. It's about using those parts of you together. No one dominant until you, of course, leave your body after your life is over. Then the head, not so much. But when you're in a body, learning to use the three in balance. That's your holy trinity. Right? Mind, heart, soul. And when you are in balance or more in balance, you are changing the chemistry in your brain. You are changing the structure of your DNA. You are evolving as a species. So it's just like tipping points, right? The more of you that do this, the easier it will be for your species to evolve in such a way, just as you and Danielle were talking about. Evolve in a way that opens you, connects you with more of what's really alive all around you. To be in harmony or communion with the virus or any virus, all viruses. Right?
The microbiome.
Yes, to be able to commune with all of that life, to commune with all the invertebrates.
Yes.
Which honestly, if you all aren't careful, if you exterminate all the creepy crawlies, you will not be able to survive because they are absolutely and they are vital in a way that most human beings have no understanding.
Yes. So you're talking
you-
about spiders and cockroaches and worms and ants and all those little pests that we try and kill on a daily basis in our homes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And at the same time, it is understandable. You all have to learn to live together,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's how you live together that is what is evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at this virus that is presently happening in your world, that is gotten so much attention,
Mm-hmm.
it is the natural world
Talking.
reminding you we exist, we are here with you, and you don't want to eradicate us.
Definitely.
It might seem that you do, because no one wants their loved one to die a painful death, or to die. Loss is not something that human beings have ever taken well.
Mm-hmm.
Completely understandable. It's very painful, and you all try to avoid pain as much as possible, even though it is a natural part of life. But understanding does not equate to balance. Right?
Exactly.
It's understandable that people don't want their loved ones to die.
Yeah.
But that is not a balanced view. It is not a balanced belief system.
Exactly. I've got so many images coming to me as you're speaking, Mother. So our current medical view in any symptoms of colds or flu is to take antibiotics, which is an energy, let me say, that eradicates what we perceive as causing the illness, instead of seeing it as an imbalance, that there has been a community flourishing and another community not thriving, and just to rebalance it. But an antibiotic just wipes out all the communities, including all the, the healthy communities, gut flora, and causes other illnesses like thrush and all sorts of things. So our medical model is based on war at this stage instead of harmony and peace. And we need to move into this harmony and peace, just like you say, and look at balance rather than eradication of what we deem as evil or wrong. Yeah.
Yes, but you see that for people like yourself and others in the world, you are starting to awaken to this, that war, regardless of what the arena is that it's being fought, is not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And what you all know as a race of beings, you do not know peace. You know time between wars, but you do not know peace. Right? So as you wage war on race and religion and health and viruses and economics and drugs, and right, you're waging all these wars on all these different fronts. You have spread yourselves so thin, and you all are becoming tired, weary. You are war weary.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what you are being asked to surrender. You are being asked to surrender the war.
Lay down your arms.
Yes, and surrender. Now, does this mean that, and this is where people's minds go, that all of a sudden that means, oh, then you have to go back to living like the Dark Ages, right? or the 1600s, or no medical care, right? It's it's the same thing when people are asking for defunding the police or disbanding the police. Then people say, oh, does that mean we have no police? No, that's not what it means. It means re-envisioning, right? It means saying, okay, this war is not working. It's not sustainable, and we are all exhausted from being at war. So is there another way?
Yeah.
If you don't ask the question, then it's hard to find rich soil where the answer can grow into a solution.
Yeah.
Asking these questions is vital. Is there another way? Right? Can we be with a virus that doesn't want to kill us? Right? If that's how viruses need to survive, to keep their host alive, how can we work with them? Right? So each of you that are watching and listening, keep meditating with the virus. Let the consciousness of the virus vibrate and resonate with you, with your energy, so that it can learn to adapt more quickly. So that if you become ill with the virus, the chances of surviving are very, very high. Because you have chosen adaptability, you have chosen to live in unity rather than trying to sterilize and eradicate. Right?
Absolutely. You know, as you were talking about war, I was thinking about the war that's happening in our world at the moment against you know, the police and a minority community, the African American or Black community in your country. It's raised riots in our country. When I say your country, in Danielle's country.
Yes.
And the Indigenous are sort of taking on that same calling. And then recently there was some man that was pulled up because he was asleep in the car and he was drunk, and the police shot him because he started to run. And it's this war against crime that the police are involved in. It's like, so a drunk man is asleep in a car and he doesn't want to be arrested and run. Like, why can't you just let him run and not shoot him? Just let him go. I mean, it's this whole war mentality that needs to shift.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes, indeed. And when you can start to shift that mentality and drop down into heart and soul, then you find more solutions just waiting for you there. But it is hard when there is too much masculine. So what's going to happen as you all move forward, as this big influx, more and more of that divine feminine chaos, right? That realm of possibility. There's going to be flare-ups of worse before better.
Yeah.
So when I spoke earlier in a transmission a few months ago, I talked about things dying down in June, and they have been in some parts of the world. There is very little activity, some flare-ups here and there, but life is going back somewhat to the way things were before. But you cannot go back. There is no normal.
No going back.
You are not going back. That's it. Right? You reached another sort of point of no return.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go back to sleep. And so this rebalancing, there are many who will fight against it because they want to keep that war going.
Mm-hmm.
Because war is big business.
Absolutely.
And for
Big.
many people in your world, money equates to power.
Power. It's so interesting, Mother. The war is big business in every aspect of human life.
Correct.
There is war in our food systems, not just like we kill the bugs with pesticides. Like that's a war. The war on the bugs. There is war in the health system. We're killing all the bugs with all our drugs. There's war in the government systems. Like when you look at every system, it seems to be all a cog in the wheel of this war.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, indeed.
But you are not going to be allowed to continue with that mindset indefinitely.
Yeah.
Because it's not sustainable. Now, you have been sustaining it for many thousands of years.
It's been surprising how long it's been going on.
Yes, but you see, in the history of Mother Earth, that's just about 5 minutes, maybe, if that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
When something is billions of years old, then a few thousand is very little. So it is not ultimately sustainable. So what you have to look to is having deeper conversations about what you all get out of this war, right? Many of you who have wonderful beliefs, beautiful hearts, you want so much to change the world. You are still also love your conveniences, and you love when things are just at your fingertips, and it's scary to think of disrupting your lives because you don't know how they're going to be disrupted, right? What's on the other side of that disruption? And when you let go of an entire collective mindset, then no one knows what's on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And that's exciting.
It is exciting.
And frightening all at the same time.
It's a bit like when you were speaking about the feminine energy is chaos energy, my immediate image that came to mind was a woman standing at an easel, because we equate feminine energy to creative energy. So there she is standing at her easel, surrounded by a chaos of paint pots, and she's just standing in this chaos. And someone comes in and says, "Why don't you clean up this mess?" And she's like, "No, it's like I need this mess to be creative." And that's the analogy that came to mind when you were talking about feminine energy or creative energy as chaotic energy. And many people say that very creative people are very messy or chaotic. And I've never really seen that. Well, I've seen it, but I've never really married that before to what's happening in our world, that as the feminine energy rises, the chaos rises on our world. Because out of that chaos comes such creativity, such expansion of inspiration and thought, and to overcome solutions. And
yes, you could find, if you stopped being at war with bacteria, you could find ways to refine your drugs so that it only targets the area that is truly and dangerously infected, but leaves alone all the other good ones, right? There are ways to refine all these things that you are at war with in a way that creates more harmony.
Harmony. Yeah,
But
well, all
it does take a dismantling, right,
of the old
of
system.
systems and the mindsets and habits.
Mm.
And that takes big events.
Mm-hmm.
Think about your own life,
Does.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, when you've tried to hold on to old ways of doing things, and you hold on and you hold on, and finally we say, "Oh, Karen, I'm sorry, my love, but we're going to have to jolt you a little bit
Yes.
into waking up," right?
Exactly,
And
sledgehammer
they
moments.
can be painful times and scary times, but you know when it's happening that you're also being open wide to something extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh, Mother, I call them sledgehammer moments. I've had many of them. Wake up.
Indeed.
So,
Because your soul says, all right, love, we've let you sort of coast for long enough. It's time for you to let go of this certain thing. But always then what comes after, what's on the other side, is you are stronger, you are expanded, you have blossomed.
mm.
That's what's happening in your world. You are right now in the middle of a collective blossoming.
A collective blossoming. A collective shift. Yeah, collective.
Those that
time.
have died as a result are doing extraordinary service
Mm-hmm.
to each one of you on the planet. And so they should be honored deeply for their sacrifice, their choice to give others the awakening that the human race has needed for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. So with regards to the rest of 2020, can we sit back and relax, or is more chaos happening? It's just chaos, it's just expanding.
Oh yes, more is coming, beloved.
More is coming, yeah.
Because 2020 is a power year.
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting, my love. 2020 is a masculine year. Right? It's a very powerful, active year. So we're bringing lots of divine feminine energy to the planet. Mother Earth is releasing a lot of divine feminine energy. You saw it in the eruptions of the volcanoes in Hawaii last year. And all this energy is coming so that the masculine can take that energy and put it into a powerful form that will wake people up. This is your year of global awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not going to end, but it's also not going to be this, people like to imagine extremes, right? This is not Armageddon. You are not going to be living in dystopian society. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, you will have to have a series of powerful awakenings so that you are motivated to change.
Mm-hmm.
And not change, not just have one typical system be taken and then another typical system replace it that might have a very thin veneer of looking different, but really is the same.
Same.
That's not going to be allowed to happen anymore.
Yeah. So for the people listening and watching this, their personal role in the chaos would be, I've asked this question of many people on the show, what would you, what's your perspective that they can be and do to be a part of the collective shift and not the war? What can they do personally?
This is a wonderful question, beloved, and I thank you for asking me. The greatest thing that you can do as an individual is to step out of the war. Right?
Yep.
Take time, as you have listened to this conversation, take time to sit and write about the war. Right? How do you contribute to it? How do your beliefs feed the war?
Yes.
Right? And how can you start to step back from that? So here's one of my favorite ways to stop being at war is to let go of your judgments. Let go of the need for knowledge and make room for wisdom. Right? If you don't agree with the way things are being done, don't judge or criticize. Simply say, this doesn't feel quite right to me. Bring to your prayer, show me, Divine Mother, Eternal Father, angels that surround me. Show me how to really live in peace. Stop making assumptions about them and what they're doing wrong and how they're at war and they're perpetuating. No, ask, how can I serve today in peace?
Yeah.
And keep writing about it. I am a very big advocate of writing.
Writing, journaling, yes. I want you to repeat that, Mother. Let go of the need for knowledge. Could you repeat that? Let go of the need for knowledge.
Let go of the need for knowledge and make room for wisdom.
Make room for wisdom. Oh my God. Oh, so beautifully said. Because, you know, a lot of people that listen to podcast shows and YouTube shows, they're on this insatiable appetite for knowledge, and that's just so beautifully said. It's like, who else can I listen to? Next.
Yes.
And in that seeking, it's delicious, and a curious mind is beautiful, but in that seeking, you're not making room for the wisdom.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's the balancing. Of the mind, the heart, and the soul. Right? So in order to come to peace, to let go and step out of the war, right? If you don't show up for the war, then there's not much left to fight with.
Then there's no war, yeah.
So it's okay to want to go out in the streets, to ask for change, to demand change, to have your voice be heard. However you feel you want to express yourself is wonderful, but you have to change the mindset of going to war. Stop going to war. Stop going to war against other people. Stop going to war against politics, against healthcare, against religion, against this virus, right? Just ask, how can I serve peace today. Let me be an instrument of peace. And write about it.
Oh, and write about it.
And recognize how you go to war, how you feed the war, how you perpetuate the war. Then you can start making changes. You can take different actions.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
And it sounds like, I know, because I live in your hearts and your minds and your souls right there with you. I know that you can hear the words and the mind easily dismisses it.
Yes.
Because we need concrete solutions.
Mm-hmm.
That is the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Open yourselves to the realm of possibility, but don't stay passive. Keep taking action, but have those actions based on peace. And here's where I'm going to say something a little controversial, all right?
Go for it.
Please don't allow your definition of peace to be based on your mind, right? Because your mind has all these beliefs from your birth until this moment that are a mixture of your own issues, your shadow, your light, all this hodgepodge of your existence. When you make room for wisdom, you stop assuming that you know the answers. And each day you come to the day not knowing, but being willing to learn. Being open to possibility that what was yesterday will not be today and cannot be tomorrow.
Yes.
So let peace evolve and come from within you rather than an image, right? Let peace come alive within you. And you may be surprised at what peace ends up manifesting as.
Looks like, feels like.
Yes.
You know, I put on a Peace Day festival years ago. People were asking me my definition of peace, and I said, the most peaceful people on the planet are children before they've been taught to be at war. And they're so joyful and loud. They're not sitting meditating and omming, which is one way to peace, but pieces can be joyous and chaotic and raucous, and
Yes.
there's so much peace inside you. You can just be who you want to be and don't care about what anyone thinks. So you just, yeah.
Yes. And children are also very violent.
They can be, yes.
They all are.
Yeah.
In some ways, whether they are perpetuating that with other children or their toys, or it is a witnessing of that masculine and feminine balance. Because nature is very violent.
Yeah, aggressive.
Yes, all of you as individuals have the capacity for violence. You have been violent. You have violent emotions sometimes, you have violent thoughts, you have violent actions. So this is what I mean by be careful how you define peace. Don't let the mind define it.
Yes.
Peace is really about harmony, but harmony also involves violence, right? So when you open to the realm of possibility, you become aligned with what is, not a fantasy, but what is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are deeply rooted in what is, anything is possible.
Definitely. Oh, Mother, thank you so much for gracing us with your wisdom. Your wisdom as opposed to your knowledge. And helping others open to their wisdom. Thank you so much.
It has been my joy, beloved. I love you. I love you. I love you, all of you. And know that I'm with you always. Namaste.
Namaste. Oh, gosh. Oh my God, I'm a mess. Isn't it funny how you take your glasses off when you're channeling?
I never know where she's going to go or what she's going to talk about. It's like, wow, okay.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Wasn't that awesome? That was so awesome. You know, years ago in the Seth books, I read the same things. I love the corroboration. He said that he talked about this group of beings that had genetically evolved aggression and violence out of their DNA. And they became so passive that they couldn't live on the surface of the earth anymore, and they had to move underground because they couldn't defend themselves against the weather. And she used the word violence, but aggression. And he said in the books, or they said, or that energy said, God, I read them like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. They said, you know, the most aggressive act in your human society is actually giving birth.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And look what happens. Like, you give birth to another being and soul on the planet. And it's an aggressive act.
Violent and painful and bloody. And
I don't know if it has to be painful. I think that we could probably improve on the whole idea of it being painful.
Yeah.
But it is an aggressive act. It is sort of, there's some violence involved there. And so to equate violence or aggression with peace, it's just, you know, like, wow.
I know. I had, it was, I'm back here listening. I'm like, oh my gosh.
God.
That's so amazing. And because, yeah, I'm guilty of that. I have this image of peace, you know?
Yeah. Quiet, serene, silence. Yep.
All that, you know, on the mountaintop and maybe a little more of how you were defining it, you know, that it's this
joyous. Yeah.
But there's always this sort of skipping through the meadow harmony kind of thing. It's like, well, maybe that's too much from too many images of Hollywood.
Yeah. But I guess that how she was defining peace is balance, like balance, but don't exclude the aggression. I prefer the word, she used violence, but because when we think of violence, we think of images of people hitting each other. That's what I do. But when you think of aggression, it's a bit more nebulous. There's no sort of image that comes to mind, just for our human linear mind perspectives, our conditioned minds.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just a balance of energy. Peace is a balance of yin yang, hot, cold, good, bad,
right.
Violence, peace. You know, like it's just a balance. It's a balance of quiet, noise, all the polarities. It's that balance.
Yeah. So it sounds like things are being rebalanced for us. Yeah.
And the creative energy being that chaos energy. As soon as she said that, I had this image of this artist, a woman, surrounded in chaos, you know, like paint pots and spills and everywhere, and this blank canvas. Yeah. And it's like from that chaos, you create this masterpiece. Yeah, it's just, well, that was so amazing. That was so beautiful. I'm a bit of a mess, Danielle. I should let you go. What time is it? Oh my God. Oh, thank you.
She does bring it up and out. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
are
much.
so welcome, Karen. Thank you
You're
for inviting me back to your show. It is always such an honor to be here with you and all of your viewers. Thank you.
Oh my God. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. I was just saying to Danielle after I turned off the recording that, I just wanted to bawl. I just wanted to cry the whole time Mother Mary was speaking through her, especially when she said, "I love you all." I just wanted to cry like a baby and go, "Wah!" Oh, if I wasn't so vain and wore mascara, I probably would have. But I don't want black running down my face. Vanity, vanity, vanity. Oh, wow. I hope you enjoyed that. I know when people reach out to listen to Mother Mary, they want to hear about the drama of that time, 2,000 odd years ago, the crucifixion and the son of Jesus, and, like all those questions I suppose people want to ask, which is knowledge, not wisdom. And there are a lot of people doing podcast shows that talk about this stuff. I remember years ago being in a group when I was living up on the northern beaches, and there was a guy talking about, the Essenes and Jesus and all this history. And did Jesus marry Mary Magdalene and have children and move to France? And did he die on the crucifixion? Was Mary Magdalene? And I just remember all this information, this knowledge being passed around. And as I sat there, I just felt like it was 2,000-year-old gossip. It's like we're still gossiping about whether he was married to Mary Magdalene or not. It sounded like tabloids to me. How does it help you on your spiritual journey? Well, it satisfies the questioning mind, but does it open the wisdom? Like, does it help you find peace inside the chaos? So I suspect if you're listening to my shows or watching my shows, that's what we're doing here. We're bringing knowledge and interesting, people's journeys, but it's really about opening the heart of your wisdom so that you can live it and be a vortex of unconditional love and peace and beauty in this world and add to the collective. Your power, one person connected to the stream of pure positive energy, is more influential than a million who are not. You have no idea how powerful you are when you open the heart of wisdom. Not only with what you do with your life as that wisdom flows through you and inspires you to act, but the energy field that you create around you and within your community and your family. And we're all connected. I was listening to an NDE on the weekend, I think, saying that she was rising above the hospital as she died, and she's, operation, you know the story. And she could see the hospital, she said, and she could see all these orbs in the hospital, which were represented as people, as she looked down, as her body is lifting, as her soul is lifting out of her body. And all these orbs, she saw people as orbs of light. But she said the one thing that was so amazing was there was this little thin cord that connected every other orb to each other. And so we're all connected. We're all one cell in the body of God. To remember is to once again become a body, a part of the body of God, or the body of Source. That's from the book's Conversation with God. Don't credit me. I got that from Neil Donald Walsh and the Conversation with God material. To remember, to become once again a member. So your wisdom expressed in the world, your peace expressed in the world, your love, you stepping out of the drama and being in that peace, even though peace can be that balance of violence, as she said, is a huge service to this world as we shift our consciousness and raise and move to the next level of human consciousness evolution on this planet. Oh, I'm still quite taken by this energy. Oh, I just want to bawl for the rest of the day. So yes, I had left December open actually in the Inner Sanctum. Don't know why, because normally what I do is I book 12 teachers at the beginning of the year to come in as a guest teacher in the Inner Sanctum. And I had just left December blank. You know, I speak to so many people I could have asked. And I just thought, I didn't know why, just listening to that impulse, which is how I live my life really. And I asked Danielle to fill that spot. So she's going to come in the beginning of December, like in the second week, you know, the weekend of the 6th, 7th. Anyway, that weekend. And so if you want to come in and join us and meet her, and she has her own online sessions too, if you want to have a more intimate relationship with Mother Mary and Danielle's work, you can do that as well. Well worth it. Beautiful mother energy, feminine energy. Just amazing. Who's coming up next week? Let me have a look on the show. Where are we? June, July. Sarah. Sarah's Kuwana. I don't know how to say her last name. Whose son left the planet and she talks to him. He channels through her. Oh, that'll be interesting. That'll be beautiful. And Shirley Batty's coming on the week after that. Beautiful. Few beautiful people coming up. So I hope you enjoyed that and you spread your wisdom throughout the cosmos. And big love to you all. Remember to get the book, Awakened by Death. Love you all. Bye for now.